Greetings and welcome. My name is Mike Bankhead. I am your host. I am a bass player and songwriter from the Jam City, Dayton, Ohio, and I have an extra special treat for you on this episode. I am pretty sure that my guest today lives farther away than any guest I've had so far. I have an Australian singer, songwriter, and musician for you today on the podcast. That's right, you're going to hear someone from Australia on the You Could Be My Aramis podcast. This episode is brought to you by my new single, Latent, which is available for streaming everywhere on Tuesday, April 25th, 2023. I really hope you listen to it. All right, let's get to the conversation, shall we? Good morning, Tracy.
Morning, Mike. Although it's not morning for you, though, is it?
No, but let's pretend I'm in your time zone. What time is it exactly where you are?
Exactly. It is 10:23 a.m.
But not the same day.
No, it's on a Sunday.
For you, it is Sunday, February 5th. For me, it is still Saturday, February 4th.
There you go.
Because you are very far away. And
well, from you, yes.
Yeah, from me. Your accent's different than mine. Can you explain why that is?
Because I live in Australia.
That'd be why.
Yeah, though I did live in the States for a few years back in the late 90s.
Now, there's a story that I want you to tell. Go.
Yeah, I've done a lot of traveling. So I ended up in the States with an ex-boyfriend who desperately wanted to get to New Orleans because he was a big jazz blues lover. So that's where we went and I ended up staying there for 3 years, funnily enough, just due to this relationship splitting, him leaving, but us getting jobs kind of in the meantime. In the French Quarter, I learned how to do short order cooking in the middle of Mardi Gras, which was definitely not the way I would teach anybody how to do anything, is like head down, bum up in the middle of the busiest season ever in one of the most popular delis in the French Quarter. So baptism by fire, I think they call it. But it was amazing. But anyway, yeah, so I didn't expect to be there for 3 years. I thought it was only just going to be for, a couple of months and then move on to somewhere else. But yeah, I met some great people and did end up with that job, and just, the months turned into years. And I just ended up traveling in between New Orleans and Mexico to renew my visa, and had another big journey down there as well. But essentially, New Orleans is like no other place on the planet, and it's just incredible for music. So I think that's probably why I ended up staying as long as I did, because it just was just this melting pot of culture and different genres of music, and just people just being raw and real. But while, after living there for 3 years, I picked up the accent. So when I got home, I certainly sounded American, not Australian, and that took a little while to wear off. And it does come back into my accent when I'm talking with people from New Orleans. It's funny when you have had an accent that you've absorbed from somewhere, how it comes back when you talk to people from that place. And I'm the same with Ireland as well too. Whenever I talk to Irish people, my Irish accent comes back. So, but at the moment, as you can tell, I haven't done much traveling recently, so I've got a pretty broad Australian accent.
You definitely sound like an Aussie to me.
Yeah.
I have never set foot in Louisiana, and here you have lived there 3 years. And as you know, this is a vast, vast country.
Oh, I know.
However, so is yours.
Yeah, America and Australia are about the same size, though you definitely have way more population and a lot more land that's conducive to, living on, where we have vast amounts of desert in the middle of our country that's uninhabitable. So aside from, remote cattle stations and Indigenous communities, but so most of our population is sort of around the coast. And yeah, so where I live in Darwin, it's kind of the very northern tip of the sort of central west coast. and very remote from the rest of Australia. I think the closest city for us would be Timor, Dili, or Kupang in Timor, as far as like, large population of people compared to an Australian city, which is about 2,500, 3,000 kilometers away.
Wow. Now I got to clarify for the audience because a lot of Americans are not very good at geography. Timor is a different country, folks.
Timor is in Indonesia, and Indonesia runs along the top sort of northern part of Australia. So in Indonesia, like Timor is probably about 1,000 kilometers maybe to us, or even less compared to the rest of the Australian major cities. So yeah, Indonesia, the Philippines, Malaysia, they're all very, very close to Darwin. So we have a really multicultural city here because of that.
Multicultural cities mean lots of delicious food.
Yes. We have these beautiful Asian markets every weekend where we get to go down and have our laksas and our noodles. And it's just, yeah, I missed this morning.
Oh, I haven't had laksa in years because I cannot find it here.
No. Well,
my city's too small. I need to go to a big city or fly around the world somewhere to get it. But that is that's one of the more delicious things you can eat.
Yes, it is. I have a laksa every week.
Now that's exactly how you make someone like me jealous.
I'm sure you have food there that I can't get here. So, but yeah. Anyway, it is an amazing place to live, but unfortunately, being a musician and one that likes to perform, it's very restricting. We don't have a large population here, and not a lot of venues that are conducive to having a nice listening audience. Most of the gigs that we have are pub gigs that are, frequented by that, loud, obnoxious, drunken young people that aren't interested in the music at all, really, aside from it just being background or, I'm sure you've done plenty of gigs where you get something yelled out at you that's this kind of song that's been around forever that's just over popular. So here, K-San, I'm not sure if you're familiar with
I am not.
With Cold Chisel. They're a big Australian band, and that's a song that gets yelled out at every gig. Play K-San! But with us, when I had a fiddle player, it's, play Copperhead Road or play Dueling Banjos. It's like, do we look like we have a banjo on stage? Just people just yell out stuff drunkenly without having any idea at all about the fact that it's an original musician standing up there trying to play their own music. So hence, whenever I need to play a decent show, I have to create my own. So I do produce a lot of events in and around town. I run a small lunchtime venue in the dry season, which for you would call summer. And it's just once a week we have put a lunchtime concert on in a park and feature original musicians every week and give a lot of emerging artists a go. So that's kind of one thing. And I run a women's festival where everybody that performs and actually produces and runs the event are women. And that was pretty successful. That was a couple of years ago. COVID's kind of put that on pause until it's kind of guaranteed that festivals will be able to run out again without being hampered, which seems to be the case right now. And just other little kind of non-regular, I suppose, venues, like we have these beautiful old historic elevated houses from the World War II era with beautiful louvers and high ceilings and ceiling fans and wooden floorboards, and we can utilise those as venues as well too, which is really beautiful. But yeah, you just got to get creative when you don't have any opportunities.
That's awesome. Like you see an issue, and instead of I guess the English and Aussies might say whinging about it, right? And instead of you went out and you solved it as best as you could given your circumstances, right?
Yeah, we do have quite a few whinging musicians in this town.
I think everybody does.
Yeah, so, and they keep sort of saying, wow, how can you do all this stuff? It's just like, well, you just do. You just decide to do it and you do it. And I think just be professional about it too. There's so many people that are just not professional or just don't have that mindset of being a professional, and they wonder why they don't get work or they can't get ahead. It's just something that I've been bashing my head about for quite some time. So I've recently been running some music business workshops for musicians in Darwin, just on getting your together with, making sure that you have a professional press kit and that you're aware of how to deal with the media and, getting gigs and being, punctual when they ask you for something, and, just everything about being a professional musician. It's just, for us who are professional musicians and are used to just having that mindset anyway, it's difficult to understand how someone who's been in the business for a very long time still doesn't have it. So I've been trying to educate a few people, and it's been successful. So there's been quite a few people that have been very grateful for the knowledge that I've had and that I was happy to share. So hopefully there'll be a few more of those coming up as well too.
Have you made live streaming part of your gigging strategy? I know that took off a lot during the pandemic for people here.
I tried it when COVID first hit because I was a fairly, regular performer and do have a lot of fans that would come to my shows. So that was kind of, and also, that whole kind of pressure coming from everywhere at that point to get on to be live streaming. I did it a couple of times and I just really found that lack of an audience and feedback and energy really disconcerting. I didn't like it. I found it really, really difficult for myself to create energy in my performance without having an audience to feed off. So I just decided it wasn't something for me, and put my energies in other areas.
I get that. But hey, you tried it.
I tried it. I did.
And that's kind of what a lot of this stuff is about, right? Give it a shot. And if it doesn't work, well, then you've learned something.
Yeah. And I think if you don't connect with something, like really connect with something passionately, and you're just doing it for the sake of, people telling you should do it, then you're not going to come across as enjoying it, and being, doing it from your heart. So it just doesn't make you come across as being very authentic. So I just think, don't do something just for the sake of doing it and because everybody else is doing it. Do it because you love it. And I just didn't love live streaming.
We have not talked about what kind of music you do, so this is the chance for you to give us your elevator pitch. I mean, I know what kind of music you do, but the listeners don't.
Says she, who was just talking about music professionalism and actually developing all these kind of things that you need in your press kit. Essentially, I would say that I'm a singer-songwriter. I have been kind of placed in the country folk genre for quite some time, Americana, but I'm just such a varied writer and performer that I'd say singer-songwriter is definitely where I sit, because I'm passionate about telling stories. And the music is just dependent upon the musicians that I have at the time. So the last album I did, I recorded in Nashville with another Australian, Anne McHugh, and that definitely has a very Americana country folk feel about it. There's definitely pop elements in there as well. And the 3 albums before that I did with my former band, the Toe Sucking Cowgirls, which is definitely high energy, Western swing, fiddle-driven bluegrass country. So that was really difficult when that band ended, to leave behind that kind of image, I suppose, of the cowgirl and of that type of music that I was pigeonholed in. And also we had a bit of a reputation, voice like an angel, mouth like a sailor, where we were just, we were 2 women that toured nonstop around the country for 6 years, high ace van painted up like a cow. And we played some pretty remote places, including mining camps and communities and in the middle of nowhere. Whereas you can imagine in Australia, and even in the States, there's some really rough places. So we really had to stand up to a whole lot of misogynistic comments and racism and, just we were, two women. We didn't shave our armpits or our legs, so they immediately assumed we were lesbians. And my partner had quite large breasts, so it was always, comments like, "Oh my God, check out the tits on that one! Oh my God, they're two lesbians!" All this kind of stuff. So we got heckled a lot in our shows, but we developed the ability to actually give back as much as what we were given. So over that course of 6 years, we got a reputation as being, yes, hard drinking, partying girls that could stand up to any drunken redneck and were very quick on the witticisms. But we had a lot of fun, but it was just tough work touring nonstop for those 6 years. So inevitably the band ended, not in a good way. I ended up with panic anxiety disorder from that constant touring and not being able to have relationships because of being in a different place almost every day. But yeah, it was difficult leaving that pigeonhole of that kind of personality as well behind and trying to convince people that I was a serious songwriter and that could actually write songs that were more plaintive and sort of not so about partying and more kind of introspective stuff, which is what a lot of the stuff on By the Wayside, which I did in Nashville, is a lot more introspective. So I like to think that I'm developing as an artist and don't like to get pigeonholed in any one particular place. So this next collaborative effort I'm doing with another songwriter here in Darwin is completely different again. He's writing lyrics, which are actually quite dark, and I'm putting music to them, which is actually quite uplifting. So it's this kind of really beautiful combination of the two that is creating these songs that are very cinematic. They're very soundtracky, and they're very different genres. So I'm jumping all over the place from Irish folk rock through to Eastern European klezmer, cabaret, to Spanish flamenco pop. So it's going to be an interesting body of work to release to my fans and see what they actually respond to it like. They're probably just going to go, "Oh my God, what is this?" But we'll see. So there you go. That's my elevator pitch that went on for like 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think I should have defined what elevator pitch is. No, that's a joke. How long have you been doing music? Let's go back to the beginning. When did you get started?
Oh, look, I got given a little acoustic guitar when I was 8 years old. And my first song that I ever played was ABBA's Fernando. That's giving my age away. But I used to run singing competitions in the street of my small town, and I always made sure I won, as you do when you're 8 years old. And then when I moved to the city when I was 16, 17, and moved out of home and got a job in a hairdressing salon, I started meeting lots of musicians and going out to gigs. And so one of my good friends at the time picked up bass and we sort of started playing around together. But it wasn't really until I came to Darwin in the late 80s that I started really taking what I was doing seriously and writing a lot more, but more stories. The stuff that I wrote when I was in Perth in the 80s was very 80s, very nonsensical kind of teenage stuff. So it would have been in the late 80s that I started writing and playing solo acoustic in a lot of women's events, and then kind of had quite a few bands, various types of genres of bands through that time until the Cowgirls, which I formed in 99 with my partner Glennie Ray, who's a fiddle and accordion player. And we toured, for 6 years nonstop. with that band. So that they finished up 20 years ago now. And since then I've been, writing lots. Recorded that album with Anne 10 years ago in Nashville, and doing lots of touring and festivals and stuff like that. But just writing continuously, and the last 2 years picking up the production journey, so I can actually start putting those songs kind of into a recorded format and playing around with stuff like that, which is exciting.
When you write these days, what's the first tool that you reach for?
Oh, my acoustic guitar. And, I have these moments where I'll wake up in the middle of the night with a fully formed song in my head, completely lyrics and melody and everything. And I have tried so many times to pick up my phone by the side of the bed and sing the song into the phone. But, I wake up in the morning and play it back and it says,
oh, yeah. I got a bunch of those. You're like, I sound like I was like on drugs.
So it's like you either get up and you pick up the guitar and you just like lay it out, or you just accept the fact that, okay, I'll either remember this in the morning or I won't. But most of the time I just go back to sleep. But they do come to me during the day as well. I haven't been writing much lyrics lately because I have been collaborating with a lyricist whose lyrics are absolutely, decades better than mine in regards to just they're just incredibly poetic. But he texts me a lyric and I'll know after reading the first few words whether or not I can put music to it or not. And if I can, I don't read anymore. I put the phone down until I can pick up my guitar. And then I will write the lyrics down, the music will just come to me immediately, like literally within half an hour of him sending through text with the lyrics, I'll have a song and I'll have a rough recording of it on my phone that I'll send back to him, and his usual comments are, that was quick. Oh my God. So I don't know why, but this collaboration at the moment with Peter Hayes is amazing. It's just this miracle of a thing where I just immediately have the vision of the song in my mind and insofar as the music and the full video of the soundtrack in my head when I read his lyrics. And the stuff that's been coming out is just so random and so not what I normally would write musically. So I just go with it and just let it come out. But what holds me back is the fact that I'm not the greatest guitarist. So I'm finding it difficult to find those passing chords that just give it more of the subtlety. So generally they just end up in B minor or, the basic A, C, and D major chords. Though sometimes there's a chord that comes to me that just shouldn't be in that circle of fifth, but it just sits in there anyway. And sometimes there's a beat that's an extra beat somewhere that my bass player calls the fifth leg that I chuck in as well too. That comes out of nowhere, but it just works. So I just let it happen. I don't force anything.
Yeah, as a bass player who composes on piano, I am very familiar with guitar players whining about the key that I've chosen. When I'm like,
oh, I don't whine. I really love it when people can sort of go, try this one, like, as far as a chord or a passing chord or something.
But on a bass, we don't unless you're doing super jazz stuff, we don't actually play a lot of chords. So if I'm like, it doesn't matter to me. And then I've had a guitarist be like, well, I don't know how to play that. I'm like, you just move your left hand to the other spot. But yeah, guitar, you have those extra strings. It's very confusing. So when are we going to get the record that you're working on?
Well, I am working very hard right now trying to comp all these tracks, and they're coming together. I'm excited about it. And so I'd say, because I'm self-producing it, it is a journey, and it's not easy because I still don't know what I'm doing most of the time on the door. So I have to keep referring to people that do and asking questions. And I'm certainly not attempting the mix myself because I know that I'm not going to be good enough to do that. So I'll have to farm that out to somebody that I know will come into my, my circle when I need them. But I'm hoping in the next few months I'll have at least one or two tracks done to be able to get the ball rolling with it. But it's going to take as long as it takes, I imagine. You can't hurry a process that needs to be how you want it to be.
You cannot. I can't wait to hear it. So, Tracy, I want you to think back as far as you can remember. What was the first song that you remember hearing in your life?
In my life?
In your life. You would have had to be like a toddler.
That I can't remember. I really can't remember. I remember the first song I played. My mother used to play a whole heap of 60s pop and country. So they were like Neil Diamond, Chris Christopherson, Johnny Cash, Loretta Lynn, and then all the pop stuff as well too that was happening in the 60s. So that was kind of the music that I got brought up on, and I think influences the music that I create today, along with the places that I've traveled to have definitely had a huge impact on the styles of music that, seep into my songwriting. So, but, the first song that I concentrated on was, like I think I said previously, was ABBA's Fernando, which is what I learned how to play on guitar when I was 8.
That's a catchy song.
They were an amazing group. No matter what genre you are into, you cannot deny that ABBA are amazing songwriters. And not quite sure about their new album, but back in the day, in the 70s, when they were huge, those songs were just incredibly catchy and really well written.
What did your childhood smell like?
Predominantly, I grew up in a small country town, so I spent a lot of time hanging out with with boys because I had no girls kind of in my age group. So we spent a lot of time in the creek. We spent a lot of time in the bush. So I suppose mud and, swamp smells, creek smells, dirt and sweat from, cycling and skateboarding and all the thing, and blood, I suppose, from lots of accidents and taking scrapes and whatever else. But the smell of skin being burnt by the sun, and the smell of horse and cow manure, because I lived in an area that had lots of dairy farms and friends that had horses. So there you go. Country smells.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because I cannot relate at all. So
you were a city boy?
Suburban. But
okay.
I would go outside when the parents were like, go outside, but I can't swim, so I would never spend any time near a creek. Yeah, and I was never out around animals and such. So, but I like that question because something about smell affects your memory in interesting ways. So.
Totally does. And I don't know whether it's a blessing or a curse, but I have an incredibly sensitive nose. And which works perfectly well when you're around great smells like food and,
yes.
Flowers and stuff like that, but equally badly when you're around, sewers and, bad smells that really infiltrate, rooms that you can't get rid of. So people are constantly sort of saying to me, how can you smell that? I don't smell anything. So no idea. Maybe I should have been a perfumer.
I that is a valid job. I want to know if your expert level sense of smell has made it into your songwriting.
Writing about my sense of smell certainly hasn't, but I agree with you in regards to how a smell can bring back really intense memories. And those memories are what serve me in my songwriting. So, I write a lot from things that just pop up and create an emotional kind of reaction. So, Gee, you're asking some incredibly interesting questions, Mike.
Well, this is how we get to know you. Not just me, but the listeners, right? And
So,
isn't at the end of the day, songwriting, our life experience has a huge influence on the way that we approach it. And I like figuring out what makes songwriters tick.
right. Well, I think because of the genre that I write in, which predominantly is kind of country folk, um, it definitely comes from a literal storytelling perspective that is infused with an emotional um, landscape that comes from experience. So, I write when I need to exercise, as in exorcism, a particular emotion or feeling or experience. And I usually write my best when I am in heightened emotional states. That's not to say that I haven't just written for the exercise of writing and just to sit down with a pen and just write. I have done lots of songs that way that people have really enjoyed, but I don't play them when I'm performing live because I don't have an emotional connection with them. And I find it very difficult to translate on stage in a performance a song that I don't have a connection with.
I think that's fascinating.
Have you ever done that? Have you ever done an exercise in songwriting just purely for writing a song without having an emotional connection?
Absolutely. In fact, I am part of a Facebook songwriting group called the 5 and 5 group, where we are given an assigned
I've heard
week.
of that, yeah.
We were given an assigned week and we get a prompt each day, and you got to write one song a day for 5 days. And
yeah,
sometimes I don't like the prompt, right? Like I'm not interested in what it is and I'm not motivated by it. But I realize that the exercise is good for my songwriting chops, makes me flex that muscle. And I will tell you that I have written some songs that I'm proud of and have kept based on prompts that I was uninterested in. Well, like, you want to do the exercise and do it as well as you can. And sometimes I write garbage and, it's okay. That wasn't good, but I did the thing. I finished it. But sometimes I'll write something and it comes out better than I had remotely expected, and it ends up being on my performance list. Some of them are on my next record that's coming out. So yeah, I think it's a unique challenge to do that.
I think it's actually pushing you out of your comfort zone, and and this is what's happening with me at the moment with the collaboration that I'm working on with Peter Hayes, which is this next recording project that I'm doing. He writes in a completely different way to what I do. He writes quite metaphorically and uses a lot of prose and writes quite bleak lyrics, which I tend to write more positive sort of stuff. So it's been a challenge working with someone that comes from a completely different lyrically songwriting perspective, but the collaboration with me composing and putting music to these lyrics has been really eye-opening because I'm approaching it in a different way to what I would normally be approaching my own music. I'm just allowing the emotion of his story to come through and affect me. So it's still tied up with emotion, but it's made me look at things in a different way. So if someone was to send me lyrics, I could still, if I engaged with them in a way that brought up an emotional response, then I could definitely do a great job of composing. That said, I am on air gigs and I have actually done jobs for people that they just want specific things, and I've done them. But, it's good, but it's not great, as in, that really inspiring stuff that you get when there's an emotional connection.
So I want to know more about your approach when that happens. So let's say your co-writer gives you these set of lyrics that are super bleak. Are you able to step into the character that he is describing? Or if that's a struggle, do you think about a place and a time when you had your heart broken 20 years ago or whatever and try to tap into that emotion? How do you approach getting to the right place?
With Pete, it's incredible. It's like I don't even think. It's like he sends me the lyrics by text. I read the first line that he sends me or the first couple of lines, and I will know straight away or not, whether it's something that is going to be workable or not, because I will be able to see and like visualize the film clip for the song in my head and hear the soundtrack to it immediately. It's as if he's written a scene from a movie, and it's just, and you're watching it, and you can, it's I can't explain it. It's just something. Sometimes you have these collaborations with people, doesn't necessarily be in the songwriter sense, but partnerships, whatever, where it's effortless and it just creates this incredible thing, from two completely different people and perspectives. We are so chalk and cheese with all sorts of different stuff, but I think I can see the story, I can see the characters, I can visualize where they are. Like this one, Broken Juliet, I'm working on at the moment, is about, two barflies. And, I can see the guy sitting in the corner and it's a dark room and the woman is at the bar and she's, looks a little bit like a prostitute, but not quite, and, down and out, but looking like she's sort of looking for somebody. And both of them have hard lives and just, they end up hooking up and sort of it becomes this kind of like beautiful story. But at the same time, it's not going to be a happy ending, because he just doesn't believe in happy endings. So it's an incredible journey, but none of this is kind of that explicit in the lyrics. It's like the lyrics are actually quite universal in a sense that you can choose yourself to decide where the setting is and stuff, and who the characters are. But that's kind of what came to me. And then the music was just this, it was weird. It was just, I just knew it had to have a Spanish flavor, and it had a kind of country Spanish flamenco thing with a bit of a James Bond theme kind of feeling underneath of it as well too, which I just have no idea where that came from. It just came out and it was like, wow, okay. So whereas the next one he sent me, which was on dementia, like these two people who were partners for a very long time, and she or he, the Dakota is the character, could be a woman or a man. Dakota has dementia and can only remember the awful stuff that happened and always keeps bringing up the awful stuff. And her partner just is trying to get her to remember the good stuff. So it's this kind of constant battle kind of between them about, please, can we just remember how the good stuff happened and the sadness of the whole story. But the music that came to me was this really upbeat Celtic kind of tin whistle and accordion and fiddle and really quite happy sounding melody, which I, again, have no idea where that came from. It just came out. So I'm very grateful for this collaboration that I have right now.
This next question, I can't remember if I asked you. So if I did, tell me you've already answered it and we'll skip it. When it's time for you to write, what's the first tool you reach for?
My guitar, obviously, because I don't actually make time to just sit and write. It's not something that I've been disciplined in. Songs come to me really quickly. They can come to me when I'm walking or when I'm in my car, and I'm just kind of allowing my brain to sort of be open, and I'm usually kind of just humming something. The rhythm of walking always gets me into that sort of mode of humming and something, which then develops into a rhythm, which then develops into, singing nonsensical lyrics. And then, something will pop up out of that, and that will be like, oh, that's a good idea. But all these ideas are sort of things that I've stored somewhere in my mind from eavesdropping and from watching people and from collecting stories. So usually I sing into my phone if I'm not handy with my guitar. And then as soon as I get home, I pick up the guitar and nut it out. So I've got a lot of voice messages on my phone of me humming and singing stuff. So yeah, I'm not the world's greatest guitarist, but it's like it gives me an idea of a melody if I can pick up something and record it straight back into my phone so I don't forget it. And then I sort of work on sort of refining the lyrics and the chord progressions from there. But yeah, essentially, well, I suppose the phone comes before the guitar because, it's my method of recording the first thoughts and feelings about the song if I can't have access to going and grabbing my guitar straight away.
And how do you know when the song's done?
Oh, you never know when the song's done. You just have to be happy with it and not be overly a perfectionist about stuff. And I just start playing stuff from the get-go. Like as soon as I've got a decent song structure, with your verses and choruses and bridges or whatever that you tend to work on in a specific genre, then I just start playing it and I'll put it into my set straight away, and it will evolve out of performing it. And so I will figure it out as I'm going with it and realize that, actually that bridge needs to be another, a couple of bars longer, or we need to go to an instrumental here. So can we pop that in? Or I don't like that word. So I need to find another word for that because it doesn't sit right in my mouth when I sing it. That kind of stuff is it. But generally when I write, something comes out really quickly from start to finish. And I don't need to go back over and edit stuff. It just seems to come out of me. And most of the time I'm happy with it when I'm done. And it usually only takes a maximum of a couple of hours of sitting down and just, from the first idea to the end of the song.
I like that. The ability to write quickly is something that I wish I had more of.
I think I got taught very early on not to edit yourself in the process.
So hard not to.
Yeah, so it's just allowing it to come out, and just allowing and trusting that what comes out, particularly if you've been doing it for a while, it's like, well, we'll just get it all out, and then if I'm not happy with it, I can edit it, but we'll just get it all out. Because as soon as you stop that creative process, you're kind of putting a roadblock on it in a sense of you're stopping the flow. So, that's when you might lose sort of really precious kind of inspiration by stopping that flow. So, and it's suited me and it's done me well. I've written so many songs and not every one of them makes the take. I mean, there's a lot of crappy songs in there that, that sit in my hard drive or sit in my songbook that I revisit occasionally. I'll go through my, songbooks that go back years and years and years and years. And I'll find a song and I'll go, oh, wow, actually, that wasn't a bad song. If I just change this, that, or the other and rework it, sometimes I can find stuff, but generally not, because it's an emotional song written for a specific time frame that I no longer probably have a connection with because I've moved on from it. But then I've got songs that I've had in my set list for years and years and years that are just universal and that I really enjoy playing.
I like that. So, where can we send the listeners to learn more about you online or connect with you on social media?
Sure. TracyBunn.com. That's TRACEY BUNN is my website. And I doing music business workshops with people and telling them you must get your website up to date, but I'm so guilty of not doing that. But I do have that on my list because of this new album coming. All of that's going to need a rework, new photos, new blah, blah, blah. So that is actually happening. And you can find me on socials where I'm actually not overly consistent with that either. But if people reach out to me, I definitely respond to all of the messages people send to me. I love talking to people from all over the place. And I really appreciate it when somebody listens to one of my songs and it touches them. And I've had a lot of stories from people about some of my lyrics and how it's transported them out of their problems for those 4 or 5 minutes and taken them somewhere else, which has been really quite, heartwarming for me when that happens. It just makes me feel like my purpose is complete in regards to what I do.
That's heartwarming. And I'm sure that people are going to like the sincerity in your music. How cool is it that you're living in the future. Since you're an Aussie, it's already tomorrow for you. And you're reaching back in the past to talk to me here in Ohio. I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Oh, thanks, Mike. It's probably, I don't know. I'm a morning person, which is kind of unheard of for musicians, but
it is.
I think it works good for the fact that you're a night person, and we can connect with the same energy, no matter what the time zone is. So
I'd like to thank Tracy for taking the time to talk to me. It's a challenge to coordinate schedules with someone who's that many time zones off from you. Tracy and I actually had 2 separate conversations, and I stitched them together with the power of the software. Dear listeners, go find her on the internet, follow her on social, keep an eye on the record she's working on now. I'm sure it will be excellent. Next week, I have more interesting people for you to listen to. For now, listeners, I'd like to remind you that this episode has been brought to you by Latent, my new single. It is out everywhere you stream music on Tuesday, April 25th. Please go listen to it. Have a lovely weekend. Bye.